Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be talking about fertilization in plants. It involves all the events after pollination till the entry of pollen in the ovule. So let's start with the very first step, that is the pollen lands on stigma by the process of pollination. So when the pollen lands on stigma, it could be rejected if it is self-incompatible or belongs to a different species. It could be accepted if it is compatible and belongs to the same species. Please note that the acceptance or rejection depends on the chemical dialogue between pollen tube and stigma. Now, the next step is the growth of pollen tube. The growth of pollen tube in the style. The pollen tube, it could be hollow or it could be solid in nature. Hollow pollen tube is found in maximum plants, and solid pollen tube, this contains transmission or conduction tissues. This contains transmission or conduction tissues. Since the chemicals are involved in this kind of movement, this is known as chemotrophic movement. After the pollen tube reaches the ovary, pollen tube reaches the ovary, the pollen grains in the pollen tube, these contains 3-celled stage. In this we have 2 generative cell and 1 vegetative cell. So let us draw a small structure of ovary so that we can understand it in a better way. Here we have 3 antipodal cells. Antipodal cells. Here we have 2 synergids. Here we have filiform apparatus. Here we have egg cell, and in the middle we have 2 polar nuclei, and this entire cell is known as central cell. Now here the pollen tube enters in the ovary. Now filiform apparatus helps in the guiding of pollen tube. Here 2 generative cell and 1 vegetative cell, it enters the ovary. Pollen tube enters in one of the synergids and releases both the pollen grain, both the generative cell, and here vegetative cell will degenerate. So now here what happens? 1 pollen grain, 1 generative cell will fuse with the polar nuclei. Here it will make a 3N structure. That structure is known as primary endosperm nucleus, and 1 cell of pollen grain fuses with the egg cell and form 2N, that is known as zygote. Since here this 3N, the formation of primary endosperm nucleus, this is known as triple fusion. Why? Because these polar nuclei are 2N in nature and this particular generative cell is N in nature. So this forms 3N ploidy. This is known as triple fusion. Here triple fusion and the formation of zygote by the help of syngamy occurs simultaneously. This process is known as double fertilization. Double fertilization. Please note that after the double fertilization, the antipodal cells and the synergids these will degenerate. So here antipodal cells and synergids degenerate. Now let us understand what was the condition of the female gametophyte earlier. So earlier we had 7 cell 8 nuclei stage, but after fertilization there will be a zygote and primary endosperm nucleus. This is all about fertilization in plants. If you have any question, you can leave a comment. Thank you so much for today and have a great day.